Some people prefer being alone most of the time. And contrary to popular belief, this doesn't mean they are lonely, broken, antisocial, or unhappy. In fact, many people who enjoy solitude feel most like themselves when they are alone. Their quiet preference is often misunderstood in a world that praises constant connection, loud personalities, and busy social calendars. But psychology shows that choosing solitude is often about self-regulation, emotional clarity, and inner balance, not avoidance or fear. People who prefer being alone tend to have a strong inner world. Their thoughts, reflections, memories, and ideas feel rich enough that they don't need constant external stimulation. Silence doesn't scare them. In fact, silence feels safe. It gives them space to think clearly, feel deeply, and process life at their own pace. While others may feel uncomfortable without noise or conversation, these individuals feel grounded in quiet moments. One major psychological trait common among people who prefer solitude is introversion, but introversion is often misunderstood. Introversion does not mean shyness or social anxiety. It simply means that a person restores their energy by being alone, rather than by being around others. Social interactions, even positive ones, can feel draining after a while. Being alone helps them recharge emotionally and mentally. These individuals often enjoy people, but in small doses. They value meaningful conversations over small talk. They don't dislike others. They just dislike surface-level interaction that feels forced or empty. When they choose solitude, it's not rejection. It's self-care. They know their limits, and they respect them. People who prefer being alone are usually very observant. They notice small details others miss, changes in tone, facial expressions, pauses in conversations, and unspoken emotions. Because they spend a lot of time reflecting, they develop strong emotional awareness. This makes them thoughtful listeners and deep thinkers, even if they don't speak much. Another psychological reason for preferring solitude is emotional independence. These individuals don't rely heavily on others to regulate their mood. They don't constantly seek validation, reassurance, or approval. They are comfortable sitting with their thoughts, even uncomfortable ones. This doesn't mean they never struggle. It means they've learned how to face emotions internally, rather than escaping them through distractions. Many people who enjoy being alone learned early in life how to entertain themselves. They may have grown up feeling emotionally independent, or they may have discovered that solitude was a place where they felt most safe and understood. Over time, being alone became familiar, comforting, and reliable. There is also a strong connection between solitude and creativity. People who prefer being alone often have creative minds. They think deeply, imagine freely, and connect ideas in unique ways. Being alone allows their creativity to flow without interruption. Writers, artists, thinkers, and problem solvers often need solitude to do their best work. Psychologically, solitude also supports mental clarity. Without constant input from others, people can hear their own thoughts more clearly. They can separate what they truly feel from what society expects them to feel. This clarity helps them make decisions that align with their values, not just social pressure. People who prefer being alone are often selective about who they allow into their lives. They don't collect friendships. They cultivate them. They would rather have one or two deep connections than many shallow ones. Because of this, their relationships tend to be meaningful, loyal, and long-lasting. There is also a protective side to solitude. Some people choose to be alone because they are sensitive to emotional energy. Crowded spaces, constant talking, or emotional drama can feel overwhelming. Being alone helps them protect their emotional boundaries and maintain inner peace. This doesn't mean they avoid people because they are afraid. It means they are aware of how external environments affect them internally. Psychology calls this high sensitivity, and it is not a weakness. It simply means the nervous system processes information more deeply. People who enjoy solitude often value authenticity. They don't like pretending, performing, or fitting into roles that don't feel natural. When they are alone, they don't have to explain themselves. They don't have to impress anyone. They can simply exist. Another important psychological factor is self-trust. These individuals trust their own judgment. They don't constantly need advice or opinions to feel confident in their choices. Time alone helps them reflect, evaluate, and decide without external pressure. Because they spend time alone thinking, they often have strong personal values. They know what matters to them and what doesn't. Trends, popularity, and social expectations don't influence them as much. Their sense of identity comes from within. However, society often labels people who prefer being alone as cold, distant, or antisocial. This misunderstanding can make them feel invisible or judged. But psychology reminds us that social preference does not equal emotional capacity. Many solitary people feel deeply, they just express it quietly. People who enjoy being alone often feel emotions intensely. That's another reason they need space. Alone time helps them process feelings without being overwhelmed. They don't suppress emotions. They sit with them, understand them, and move through them slowly. Solitude also supports emotional healing. After disappointment, heartbreak, or stress, people who prefer being alone often retreat, not to isolate, but to recover. Quiet helps them regain balance and perspective. It's how they reset. These individuals are often independent problem solvers. When faced with challenges, they think things through internally before asking for help. This doesn't mean they never need support. It means they trust themselves to try first. People who prefer being alone usually dislike chaos and unnecessary conflict. They value calm environments and predictable routines. Drama feels exhausting, not exciting. Peace feels more rewarding than attention. Psychologically, solitude also encourages self-acceptance. When you spend time alone, you get to know yourself without masks. Over time, this familiarity reduces the need to compare yourself to others. You stop performing and start accepting who you are. Many people who prefer solitude are deeply empathetic. Because they observe more than they speak, they understand others well. They may not always express empathy verbally, but they show it through presence, loyalty, and quiet support. It's also important to understand that preferring solitude does not mean someone never feels lonely. Everyone feels lonely sometimes. The difference is that these individuals don't confuse loneliness with being alone. They know solitude can be nourishing, while loneliness is emotional disconnection. People who prefer being alone often struggle in a world that constantly demands availability. Social media, messaging, and expectations to respond quickly can feel draining. They need time to disconnect in order to feel whole again. Over time, many of them learn to protect their alone time fiercely. Not because they dislike people, but because they know what happens when they don't. Burnout, irritability, and emotional overload. Psychology shows that alone time improves focus, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. For people who naturally prefer solitude, it's not optional, it's essential. They are not missing out on life. They are experiencing it differently. While others find meaning through constant interaction, they find meaning through reflection, depth, and presence. People who prefer being alone often live quieter lives, but quieter does not mean empty. Their inner world is active, thoughtful, and emotionally rich. They feel deeply, think carefully, and move intentionally. In the end, preferring solitude is not something to fix. It's something to understand. Psychology teaches us that human needs vary, and fulfillment looks different for everyone. Some people bloom in crowds, others bloom in quiet. And for those who prefer being alone most of the time, solitude is not escape, it's home.